Chilling tales for dark nights.
Knuckle's Supper. Written by Drew Stepek. Performed by Jason Hill. Chapter 20. Jezebels. As the hell's bells of the Lord's Prayer invaded our dreams, I heard the door at the end of the hall disengage and open. Herman slept, and even if his hearing was fully intact, I doubted that he was interested in any late-night booty calls. The usual sound of combat boots and soft shoes coming down the hall was replaced by the heel-to-toe tap dance of stilettos. Halfway to our cells, the clicking was interrupted by the sound of a tumble. "Shit!" a female voice whispered. She then broke into laughing hysteria. I heard her get up, brush herself off, and stabilize against the brick wall. Unbelievably, the process of a junkie picking herself up from a fall and making herself presentable without dozing off took an unsubstantial 55 seconds. Somewhat shuffling, probably because of a skinned knee, she made her way to the front of my cell. "Hey, RJ," she spat with her perpetually laryngitic voice. The habit stood around 5'8" in her spiked heels. For some dumb reason, she was wearing a nun's habit. Her blonde hair was stringy and pushed behind her ears, revealing very little inside the emptiness of her pale blue eyes. She was blessed with naturally mesmerizing eyes, but since she chose the path of waste, her black pupils blanketed the color. Whenever I saw her, I expected her to say, "I'm ready for my close-up, Mr. DeMille." When she scratched at the track marks under her robe, her shoulders compressed, causing her spine to bend. I don't know if she had scoliosis or if the constant cold spins from the drugs made her bend around like a hunchback. Her makeup was so poorly applied it looked like someone literally took a clown, grabbed it by the hair, and pounded its made-up face onto hers. She looked thinner than I remembered. The only part of her appearance that seemed to be applied with any TLC was her lipstick. But since it was clumped on to conceal an outbreak of herpes in the corners, her lips could never be described as kissable. Punchable? Yes, but only if the fist was thoroughly disinfected and sanitized before and after contact was made. She grabbed her outfit at her thighs, pulled it out at the sides, and curtsied. Sadly, her attempt to look like a lady appeared more like two anorexic weasels chasing each other around a scratching post. "Do you like my outfit?" I didn't get off my cot. I lay there, shooting knives at a busted-up face with my eyes. "You get it, RJ? It's a habit. A nun's habit." She fell against the bars to steady herself and exhaled like she just competed in a caber-tossing tournament. I would storm the bars and slurp her into my cell piece by piece if I didn't know that the UV lamps would flip on and give Herman a fireman's wake-up call. However, I had no interest in touching that pile of contagion. I yawned. What do you want, habit?" "Come on, RJ," she giggled. "Is that any way to greet your long-lost girlfriend? Don't you want my autograph?" Her tone stung my ears and heart. It reminded me that not only did I never bed her, but that she used me solely for drugs. Her time on this planet was limited to being a price-slash knockoff of Nancy Spungen. I should have killed her when I lived at her house with her, long before she burned down the original Battlesnakes compound. If I ever had anything written about me on a gravestone, it would have to say something about my inability to read females. First it was the habit, and then it was bait. It seemed unfair that the bitch was standing in front of me, alive, while somewhere bait was enduring some type of torture. All I could hope for was that Pico was doing right in getting her away from Nomi and the Wangers, who wouldn't think twice about handing her over to Dez. I got out of bed. I made my way toward the front of the cell, wary of the threshold that triggered the lights. She backed away from me. "Get her, Reynolds," Herman said. "I can suffer through the lights. Kill that little washed-up bitch." I didn't. I rubbed my eyes. "I burned down your fucking house," I confessed to her. She thought for a minute. As I figured, she forgot that I lived in her secret heroin den. Then her eyes lit up. "Good. I'm not getting residuals like I used to. I can collect the insurance money." Totally forgot that place even existed. I thought you would have stopped paying the mortgage. Thanks. Oh, I wouldn't be thanking me. When they open that place up, they're going to find a shitload of remains buried in the floorboards. Good thing I don't have any record with the cops. Even better, everyone knows who you are. Whatever. She fell quiet for a minute. No one knows who I am anymore. "What do you want?" I asked her. She smirked and scratched her arms more furiously under the robe. "I just wanted to show you my outfit," she repeated. "Get it?" Her eyes swam with the effect of the heroin. "Yes, I get it. It's stupid." "Please kill her, you soft ass," Herman said. I said, "What do you want? Why are you here?" Struggling, she stood up, breaking off her heel in the process. "You're an asshole." She bent down and kicked her shoe off. I turned around and headed back to my cot. "How did you get in here?" Realizing that she had the upper hand because I wasn't going to kill her, she came closer to the bars and picked up her shoe. "They let me in to talk to you. They gave me all the security shit because I helped them find you. They know about our history and they figured I could convince you." "Pfft," Herman scoffed. She threw her nun's habit over her head and started scraping at her inner thighs with her broken heel. Her arms were beyond blotchy and black and blue from collapsed veins. Her left arm, her preferred shooting arm, looked like a tattooed sleeve of ominous thunderstorm clouds. I came to the conclusion that she was less of an asset to the cloth at that point than she was a roadblock in their effort to get us to do their bidding. I felt kind of bad for her. Sure, she led them to us. But what was next for her? I wiped my nose on the synthetic pillow. Why would you lead them to us? Who are these guys? What the hell do they want? She tugged away at the skin on her arms and legs with the heel so hard that she started bleeding in numerous places. Usually, I quite enjoy the smell of blood. Her blood smelled like a sulfur mine and celluloid burned up inside an old movie projector. Heroin had not only killed her mind, it also digested her insides straight through to her soul. She was the next childhood actress waiting in line to one day get back on top. If Hollywood history foretold when that would be, her star wouldn't shine again until the day she died. Only then would her fans remember how great she was. "She's just another worthless junkie," Herman said, dismissing the conversation. He definitely doubted she could deliver any insight to our captivity. She stomped crookedly on one broken heel over to the front of Herman's cell. "You sure didn't feel I was too worthless when I burned down your house, or when I killed all those assholes inside. That's right. I turned them inside out the last time I went over there. You ruined my career, you motherfucker. I had it all." Herman rattled the table, trying to break out of the straps, cuffs, and chains that clamped him down. The habit ran her finger down one of his bars. "What's the matter?" He turned his head away from her to the back of his cell. "Don't worry, girl. This ain't over. Not even close. Just so you know, the battlesnakes didn't kill anyone when we burnt down that set. You killed my brothers. I'll never forget that. She shivered. I don't know if she was being theatrical or just a junk rat. Ooh, she sang. What are you going to do? Are you going to beat me with the leftover body parts of your gang? She clomped back to my cell like she was an uneven bar stool. They aren't going to kill you, RJ. She pulled the nun's habit back over herself. I think they plan to rehabilitate you or something. I sat up against the bars on the back wall next to my bed. Rehabilitate me. Are you sure that's what they want? Something like that. The scraping with her heel resumed and made its way to her neck and big hickey near her jugular. I don't know, I wasn't paying attention or anything like that. You never do, I said, frustrated. You should have paid attention to your agent before you got kicked off TV. She pointed back to Herman. I lost my show because this motherfucker destroyed it. Tired of playing charades with a dope fiend, I asked one final time. So, again, what do we owe the pleasure of this enlightening visit, Habit? She ran her finger over her lips and soothed the bedrock in her voice. I wanted to see you, my little RJ. Why? Because I haven't seen you since I got back from rehab in Malibu. These priest guys paid for it. They said they may be able to get me on some TBN show. I see it was successful. And here I was wishing you'd fallen off the earth or died from an overdose. Is that where you went after you torched the Battlesnake's compound? You realized that they came really close to killing me for that, right? Where did you go after that? I don't know. I did a couple porns. Herman rotated his head back to her. Get the fuck out of here. I've been tortured enough. She picked a piece of crust out of the top of her nostril and flung it in Herman's direction. I stood back up and paced my cell with my head down, evaluating her claims. Wait. So, you really did all this? Orchestrated this elaborate revenge? Because you aren't a star anymore. I pointed to Herman. Blood vessels popped in his eyes, creating clotted tears. You burned down his compound and killed his friends, thereby leading him to set me up with the cops a year later, then landing both of us in this fucking jail to be tortured? I stopped and swayed my head back to her. All of this because you aren't a star anymore. I hesitated for a second and then rushed toward her. As predicted, the lights didn't blaze on. Kill her, Reynolds! Kill that junkie whore! Somewhat prepared for my reaction, the Habit pushed herself out of my reach as I tried to snatch a strand of her fried hair. Again, she lost her balance because of her uneven shoe. She trembled as she pushed herself further and further from my reach. She seemed more surprised that the cloth wasn't protecting her than she was at my reaction. She scanned the room for the lights to zap me. She was worthless to the cloth. She was nothing but a dry, smelly, bottomless sinkhole to dispose of needles and pour shit into. You could still turn on a standard cable channel to watch her show, but the canned laughter seemed all too fitting a mockery of what she'd become. Another Hollywood nobody. She thumped on the wall at her back, not taking her eyes off me. Knowing her depth perception was beveled and warped, she feared the dangers of stumbling an inch or two out of her safe zone. As she scooted her can up the wall, she continued to knock. I want to leave now, she cried. She looked toward the speakers or cameras in the sky, trying to get the attention of her comrades. Still unsure of her location as to how it pertained to my reach, she glued herself to the wall as she sidestepped away. As soon as she reached the end of my cell, she dashed to the exit, sounding like a peg-leg fast braking on a basketball court. As she reached the door and clutched the handle, she hollered back. You're an abortion, RJ. A goddamn abortion. The lovely music turned off as it had every day. However, we weren't greeted with the routine morning dose of artificial vitamin D. Nonetheless, I was prepared. I had gotten in the practice of beating the lights every morning. Seemingly bored by our predicament, Herman yawned. "You can come up from behind your mattress, Reynolds. I don't think they're going to hit us anymore." Trying to play it cool rather than continuing to cower, I upended the mattress back onto the frame by using both hands. I might have even flexed. I dusted my hands off against each other like I had done something productive. All in a pussy day's work, I suppose. "Why are you fronting like you just did something? You blew it." I sat back down on the bed and cradled the back of my skull with my hands. The lacerations on my sternum were almost fully healed, and my body was beginning to feel cleansed from heroin. I ignored his badgering. "Why are you saying stuff like frontin'? You're an educated man. Enough of the thug life talk. It's only you and me in here. Got nothing to prove." Knowing I was right and his mobster facade was useless inside, he simply said, "Whatever." "Do you think the lights might be broken?" Herman coughed and wiped his face on the table. "The lights aren't broken. It's back to more cat and mouse shit." I shot him a glance and noticed that his body was noticeably more intact than it had been in weeks. He was starting to look normal again, and less like a melting candle. "Seriously, why didn't you kill her, Reynolds?" "You should be thanking me, asshole." I pointed to the front of our cells. "No lights." "I can stand the lights," he said, "and I'm not thanking you for anything. Ever. You brought that white trash bitch around to begin with. You brought a card-carrying member of the KKK into my house." He twirled his arms around, showing off his cell. "You're to blame for this." I jumped from my bed. "Herman, holy shit, your restraints." "What about them?" "They're off," I said, pointing at his body. Taking a second to adjust, he put his hands in front of his face. Then, he scratched his ass. "Damn it, Reynolds, I've been waiting to get at that itch forever." "Careful, dude. Maybe you should grab the top of the table so you don't slide off." When he satisfied his itch, he firmly latched onto the top of the table. Cautiously, always expecting a trick up the cloth's almighty sleeve, I inched toward the bars that separated us. "Can you get up?" He delicately rolled his torso from side to side. I could tell that his front hadn't been as viciously scaled by the lights and tortured as his back. "I don't know." He tucked his legs up under his pelvis and then slipped back down. "Legs work." He tried again, getting similar results. Because the middle of his monstrous body was so weak, he was as reluctant as I was after the acid incident to test his body's durability. He was either afraid he was going to break in half, or he was afraid his insides were going to spill out of the paper-thin remains of his back. The once vicious gang leader and most notorious killer in Los Angeles had been reduced to a defeated and crumbled shell of his former self, reluctant to rediscover mobility. Herman tugged his body up the span of the plexiglass table. As he wormed upward, globs of skin broke off like tightly secured twine snapping a Christmas tree from the roof of a car. He wiped a week's worth of sneezes and teeth off his face. Presumably more annoying than the constant reminder that his ass itched, he seemed relieved to release that diamond-encrusted gold tooth off his cheek. While supporting most of his weight with one arm, he tucked the tooth into his pocket. "Why are you keeping that? The tooth fairy isn't going to visit you here," I joked. "Hilarious." He brought his hand back to the table and redistributed his weight as he pulled himself toward my cell. "Careful, Herman," I advised as he began arching his back. "I can't tell how solid that part of your body is. The last thing you want to do is have your guts drop out of you." He attempted to get a look at his back. "Oh, what's this thing around my neck?" I pointed to my collar. I'm guessing it's probably some kind of shock collar. I have one of those around my neck. I thought you were trying to be punk rock or something. I smirked. He thought I was a bigger poser than him. Unable to drag himself any further without causing possible permanent damage, he lost his balance yet again and slipped back to where he started. Shit! He looked at both his hands and reset the process a third time. Can you see my organs or anything, Reynolds? I stood on my tiptoes to look further down his body toward his back. It's mainly charred skin. I can't really tell if there's anything beneath it at all. Try and scrape some of it off so I can get a better idea of what's going on there. He rolled his eyes. Oh, you'd like that, wouldn't you? Meaning? You know what it means. I felt that we had made a lot of progress being locked up next to each other. I guess I was wrong. Actually, Herman, I don't know what it means. Do I have to spell it out for you? You want me to open it up further? From what I can feel, he pressed on the burn with the balls of his fingers. There isn't anything there now except for charred-ass Tommy Burger. I dropped down off my toes. That's what it looks like from here. He pulled himself up to the table's edge to create a little more support for the rest of his body. I could tell he was doing everything in his power to devise a scheme to somehow hopscotch onto the floor and then onto his bed without shaking up his innards and disturbing what little protective support his backside offered. I looked around his cell for an answer, wishing there was a gurney for him to transfer onto and then push himself to the bed. There was his IV machine and a small metal surgeon's table next to that. There was nothing that would support his weight. However, there was a roll of duct tape on the table. I turned away from being his lifeguard and headed back to my cot. Wait a second, Herman. In a rare showing of uncertainty, he blubbered. Where are you going? I nabbed my bargain pillow and rushed back to the bars. Here, I said, pushing the pillow toward him. Herman's head was nearly at the side of my cell. What do you want me to do with this? Take a nap? No, jackass. Wrap it up as best you can around your lower back with your free arm. I pointed to the small side table. Push that over to me first. Herman unenthusiastically followed my instructions. As he struggled to hold himself up on the table, he flicked the card up to the bars between us. Now what? I grabbed the tape and opened it with my teeth as Herman tried to tuck the pillow around his stomach without gliding back down the table onto the floor into his death. Okay, he said. Pull yourself up a little farther. Seemingly defeated, he whined. I can't. Shit, I said, reaching both of my hands into his cell, extending my body as far over him as I could. I stuck the open end of the tape on one of his shoulder blades and then ran it across his back. Inch up a little. Herman pressed himself up slightly so I could run the tape roll under his chest. As I spun it back around for a second pass across his back, I felt how mushy his protection actually was. I didn't say anything. There wasn't any reason to alarm him before I gave my plan a try. Up again, I said. As carefully as if he was carrying a tray full of antique china, he arched himself up again. Quickly, I rolled the tape under him. His strength was fleeting. As soon as I signaled to him that the tape was clear, he thundered back onto his stomach. I stretched my arms further into his cell and threw the tape down to his side. I know this is going to be tricky, Herman, but you're going to have to try and secure the pillow onto your back. My arms won't reach it any further. Looking toward me like a helpless child, he continued to whimper. How? You've got to do it slowly by switching arms and maneuvering the tape roll under you across the table. I can't, Reynolds. Just as unsure as he was, I still tried to comfort him. Yeah, you can do it. Trembling and agitated, he sucked in the front of his body as he continued to grip onto the edge of the table. First using his rib cage, he pressed the roll under him by lightly rocking his body back and forth. As soon as he felt it pass through to the opposite side, he stuck its sticky side down so it wouldn't topple off the table. Then he brought his right arm around to the back, grabbed the tape and pulled it over to the right side of his body. Seeing that he was about to drift down the table again, I reached back into his cell and anchored both my arms around his wrist. I dug my combat boots into the cracked cement to give him more support. With me lending my strength to the equation, Herman started winding the tape around the pillow and his body as quickly as possible. His carelessness caused the tape to twist so the gummy side wasn't sticking to the pillow. "Tighter," I advised him. Too busy to think about anything other than getting the chore done, he struggled furiously to get every inch of the sliver of tape around him until it ran out. His breath became heavy and sweat soaked his face. "It's gone, Reynolds." The empty cardboard roll bounced off his floor into my cell. "I don't think I got enough tape on the bottom to hold." Continuing to pull him up and myself backward on my heels, I tried to look over the hump on his back. "I can't tell," I told him. "How far down did you get?" "I don't know," he gasped. "Maybe just past my kidneys." Reluctantly, I said, "It'll have to do." Herman gripped his loose hand back to the top of the table. I eased off some of my pull and stepped sideways, trying to bridge the gap between his table and his bed. "Hold on really tightly for a second," I directed, switching my support from his left wrist to his right, one hand at a time. "Okay, I need you to do something now." His throat rasped as he tried to pace his breathing. "I need to rest." "Herman, if you rest, you're going to end up in 1,000 pieces all over the floor. Listen to me." I let go of his wrist with my left hand and started dragging his other wrist off the table. I used all the strength I could muster as he let that arm off the table and into the security of my free hand. Once again rocking his torso, Herman shuffled across the table. "Drop the leg now. I've got you." I squinted my eyes, preparing to have 300 pounds of pressure yank me into the metal bars. "Be careful. As you hit the floor, continue arching your back. Keep your head upright, too." Without any comment, I steadied him as his first leg dropped toward the floor. "Okay, now I'm going to pull you sideways so both of your legs can make contact with the ground." I pulled him around until I had turned his body about 45 degrees laterally. Then, I started to give him leeway as he wiggled his way down so that his bare toes touched the floor. He looked at me from under squinted eyelids. "Are you sure? We have nothing to lose," I half assured him. He shuffled down until his bottom half stabilized his top half. I let the wrist go slowly until he was standing on his own. His back hunched over as his neck stretched out like a hungry giraffe. It was the only thing supporting the bowl of chili that used to be his cranium. You can let go now," he said, still unsure. I did. One carefully plodded foot at a time, he made his way to the cot in his cell. He placed his hands on the mattress and collapsed his knees underneath him. As soon as his sternum was safely on the bed, he let the rest of his limbs loosen with the exception of his neck, which he propped up under his pillow to keep his head upright. "I need this pillow, Reynolds," he said, letting out a convincing sigh of relief. "Don't sweat it. I hated that pillow anyway." Good evening. This is Jason Hill, host of the Horror Hill podcast. You've been listening to a chapter from the award-winning novel Knuckle Supper by best-selling author Drew Stepek. Knuckle Supper, Ultimate Gutter Fix Edition, and its critically acclaimed sequel, Knuckleballed, are available now from Bloodbound Books. Check out the links in the video description and sticky comments below to pick up a copy today and show your support for indie horror. Also, please consider making a donation to Children of the Night today and help end teen prostitution and human trafficking. Children of the Night is a privately funded non-profit organization established in 1979 with the specific purpose of providing intervention in the lives of children who are sexually exploited and vulnerable to, or involved in, prostitution and pornography. Visit childrenofthenight.org for more information today. From author Drew Stepek and all of us here at Chilling Tales for Dark Nights, thanks for listening and for your support.
Chilling Tales for Dark Nights.